Very good evening. We are transmitting live from a very pleasant evening on the Palm Jumeirah. We're looking at telescopic views of the full moon, technically known as the perigee full moon, also known very famously, very commonly as the supermoon. The term becoming famous for the past few years. So, what is so special about the full moon today? The moon happens to be very close to the Earth today. It hasn't been this close for the past 68 years. As the moon goes around its orbit around the Earth in an ellipse, sometimes it's closer to the Earth and sometimes it's much further away. On occasions when it's close to the Earth, it also happens to be a full moon night, as is today. So we do get supermoons quite often. Last October was a supermoon. December is also going to be a supermoon. But this supermoon is really special. The moon is really close to the Earth. It won't be this close to the Earth until 2034. So, and this really makes a difference when you look at the moon. It may not be perhaps discernible to a casual observer, but if you're a regular observer and you're looking at the moon, you'll make out that it looks slightly bigger, slightly brighter. How bigger and how brighter? Compared with an average moon, it's about 7 to 10% brighter, and compared with the smallest full moon, it's about 30% brighter. With any full moon, it produces tides. So the super moon produces super tides, right? It produces. It obviously causes sort of the sea levels to rise and fall. So there is high tide and low tides. If the sun is aligned with the moon, then it causes even higher tides and even lower tides as well. Apart from that, obviously, since it's much brighter, it affects the natural life cycle of living beings on the Earth, particularly nocturnal animals. And besides all that, it gives an excuse for amateur astronomers and casual stargazers alike to look at the moon and admire its beauty. Well, it actually is a bit of a paradox. When the moon is near the horizon, it is actually further away from the Earth than it is when it is right at overhead. But it's an optical illusion. Since you're looking at moon against sort of everyday objects, trees, buildings, people, it tends to look slightly bigger, and it looks enlarged. There's exaggerated sort of the whole circumference looks a little bit exaggerated, but it's an optical illusion. On the other hand, when the moon is right overhead, it's actually closer to the Earth, and it's actually 1% bigger in size. But since you don't have anything to compare it against, it actually looks quite ordinary or even smaller than the one on the horizon. But it's a nice illusion to have. Makes for good photographic opportunities. So now we are looking at the moon through a telescope. Okay, this is about it's a small refractor, and we have magnified the moon about 50 times. And if you look closely, you can make out all the craters, the sea. One thing you notice is that you never see the other side of the moon. The moon always faces towards the Earth, so it's one particular side. There is no dark side of the moon. There's another side of the moon that you don't normally see, but that's because the moon is locked in a tidal embrace with the Earth. So, because of gravity, the Earth always pulls moon in a tidal embrace, and that's the reason you see only one face of the moon always pointing towards the Earth. So keep looking up and enjoy the full moon.
the photography?
Well, photographing the moon is it's a little bit difficult and it's a little bit of challenging than it looks like. The moon, when you look at the moon, you see it in against a dark night sky, and if you want to photograph the night sky, people tend to sort of use long exposures. But when you're photographing the moon actually is in full glare of the sun. So there is daylight on the moon when you're photographing it. And as such, the moon is quite bright. So if you're trying to photograph the moon using long exposures, well, it's going to be overexposed. Now, this is a little bit counterintuitive. You're shooting at night, you could be shooting a night landscape. Typically, this calls for a longer exposure, but if you have a moon as one of the objects or your main objects, um, then it's better to keep a much quicker shutter speed. Now this becomes a challenge if you want to have a good night landscape as well. I recommend if you want to shoot the full moon with a good landscape properly exposed, don't shoot exactly on the day of the full moon. Shoot either a day before, okay, or a couple of days before the actual full moon, when typically when it's rising. Then you have the landscape properly sort of bathed in sunlight, and you have this moon also coming up with, and you can properly expose. You can properly expose both the moon and the landscapes.
And the use of iPhone in, well, not iPhone, phones generally.
Well, yeah, and people do have this misconception that astrophotography tends to be very hard. You require a big telescope to start with astrophotography, but now with the advent of these modern cameras, your modern DSLRs, even your iPhones and your smartphones, technology is providing these good image sensors in the hands of amateurs and even casual stargazers. So you can, if you've been in a star party and you see views of bright objects, moons, planets, and you happen to have a smartphone, with the permission of the person showing you the object, of course, you can try taking a snap. It's not as difficult as it looks. You can have quite good sort of decent beginning to your astrophotography hobby, starting even with smartphones. As you sort of progress, then people tend to first start with DSLRs, commercially available, very cheap, reasonably easy to use. You don't require any other equipment. You can shoot bright objects, moon, planets, sun, provided you have a telescope, and even wide field night landscapes, star trails, um, panoramic views of the Milky Way, star constellations. So it's really becoming, it's probably the best time to start astrophotography as your hobby. Okay. So thank you and keep enjoying the full moon. Bye.